Welcome everyone. This is our last presentation on engagement in teaching motor development. We have three excellent speakers. We have Jericho Johnson from the University of North Texas, Paul Rukavina from Adelphi University, and Allie Bryan from the University of South Carolina. So I'll speak no more and let you go ahead and present.
Thank you so much for inviting us. We are super excited to talk about engagement in teaching motor development. So I'm going to start off, and then each of us will be jumping in at different times. And in the middle, there will be some activity parts. We're going to use a Jamboard, and so hopefully we can get everyone to contribute to that. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is important for engagement. Our job is to prepare students so that they have a motor developmental and learning perspective and be able to apply motor behavior concepts in their professional practice, whether it's teacher candidates or physical education or physical therapy. However, our students enter our motor behavior classes with different cultures, intersecting identities, and capabilities. And so it's a challenge for us, but we need to be able to employ inclusive pedagogies to include them in our classes and be mindful and overcome any systemic barriers to be able to meet our motor behavior objectives. Now, there are a couple pillars if we think about being culturally relevant for engagement. The first is to believe that all students are capable of learning, and that's one of the pillars to be able to do inclusive teaching. The other thing is to think about cultural competence and the willingness to promote students to learn about, accept, and appreciate other people's cultures that are in the motor behavior class, and to, as professors, to think about any systemic inequities and imbalanced power dynamics in the class, and so we don't invoke any stereotypes. And so just all sets the stage for inclusive teaching. The objectives of our presentation is we're going to differentiate among different aspects of inclusive teaching. We have a model to present. And then we're going to get into using the Jamboard to talk about different teaching strategies for each of the different parts of the model in our motor behavior classes. And at the end, we're going to think about those strategies at what time of the semester that you would use these. So the first part, so the model has three different parts. The first one is developing empathy. The second one is creating a positive and welcome classroom climate. And the third one is having pedagogical choices to help students' voices and choice. So I'm going to go over the three of these, and then we're going to jump into our activities. Empathy is very important. If we want to incorporate our students' voices into our classes, we need to have empathy. And empathy is the degree which professors work to deeply understand students' personal and social situations, feel caring and concern in response to what they exhibit in their positive and negative emotions, and then be able to respond compassionately. We need to understand who are our students and how diverse they are, and to help them be able to collaborate, teacher-student interactions and student-student interactions. And exhibiting empathy is represented both in classroom policies and teacher behaviors. The second part of the model is positive classroom climate. And positive classroom climate makes students feel welcome, respected, and valued despite who they are and what culture they bring to the class. It helps set up a sense of belonging in the class, which is a key element to student motivation. And if we think about our not evoking any stereotypes of any people's culture in the class, and that reduces risk, and it makes our students feel safe. And the third one is pedagogical choices. These positive choices that we have in the classroom creates an inclusive environment where we allow students to have choices and to co-create the content, allowing for their voice to be exhibited. And again, this also contributes to them feeling belonging in that sense of self-efficacy. We heard about self-efficacy earlier with working with children. And so being able to feel competent in interacting is in expressing themselves is important. So our whole group activity, we're going to bring out a Jamboard, and Allie is going to post it in the chat. And what I'd like you to do is I'm going to give you some example. I'm going to start off with the empathy, and then Allie and Jericho will do the other two. And so I'm going to post a couple examples, and I invite you to post examples and onto the poster stickers. And I'll show you this in a second. And then if the organizers can open up the cameras, we can get people for a couple minutes to also contribute verbally if they want to do that. Okay, so let's see, we clicked this. So is everyone, we see the empathy Jamboard?
Paul, do you want me to share it?
Yeah, you can do that. I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Okay. Can we see it?
Yeah. So a couple
Yeah.
examples
Okay.
are, you know, at the beginning of the semester, you can ask students what they are expecting to learn in the class. So anytime you learn about students' personal and situation, that gives you the capability to act more compassionately and fit their needs. And the second strategy is that's like, let's say you're talking to a student after class, and you want to center yourself so you can check where your emotions are, and then start engaging in finding out what their emotions are, and start using active listening and reaching out and kind of listening and understanding on that before you start building relationship. Thanks. So let's get some other examples. So we have up here, have students assist in picking deadlines and test dates. Okay, interesting. Have students tell their story, where they came from, where they come from. Okay. Ask students what they hope to be when they grow up. Okay. So, yeah, I want to be a physical therapist, a physical education teacher, pediatrics. Learn and remember their names. Yes. Check in periodically throughout the semester with where my students are at with the content and how they're feeling about the courses. Yeah, because if you're not understanding where they're at, it's hard to act compassionately toward them. Mid-quarter surveys for anonymous feedback, class loads, and sharing. Okay, nice. Thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumb down relative to the content that you're presenting. Okay, getting feedback on are they connecting with the content or not. And then another one I thought of is in the hallways, having casual conversations and seeing what they're up to, whether they like I'm in teacher education, and so how are they doing in their placements? When the student misses an assignment, start with the perspective of, are you okay? Okay, checking in with students, seeing where they're at emotionally. Yep. Oh, I like the candy in the office to encourage them to visit and check in. Okay. Can't go wrong with candy. Sweet tooth. Daily temp checks to assess mood, emotion at the beginning of class. Yeah, because whatever they're feeling impacts how they're viewing the class, and that may impact their interactions. Ask what type of learner they are. Oh, because we were, I think Jane was talking about visual, verbal, and some are emotional learners. Having extra office hours before the exams week. One thing I do is I give students like a choice of 2 test dates, and I ask them, what's going on in your lives as a whole group, and do we want it this date or this date? And you get often really good feedback as, no, we want it earlier or we want it later. Oh, an ice-breaking activity I use is to develop your own family shield, like the knights in England. They share the elements that are important to their own personal journey. Oh, interesting. It's like it's that visualization that the just to visualize. That's interesting. Ask if they have a job. Okay. Anytime you can let students share any type of stories for any type of concepts that you get to learn about them, who they are. Okay, let's see. Any other good strategies? These are all just incredible. Uh, uh, this is me icebreaker and having 3 photos. Okay. And also at the beginning of the semester, they is of what you wanted to be when you are little, what sport you like, what do you want to be when you grow up. Okay, so like another form of icebreaker at the beginning to learn about them. I asked not just if they work, but if they can study or do some homework, or if they do homework at work. Okay, getting to know them. Yeah, so any type of strategies where we can work to understand students and then be able to feel caring and the love inside yourself, and then be able to respond compassionately, but still keeping our high expectations. It really is about employing teacher empathy. So I'm going to pass it on to, let's see who we got. Jericho's next. Okay.
Loving, thank you all for the participation. That was awesome. That was amazing. So keep that same energy for the next two concepts. So Ali, if you can share my Jamboard
Done.
screen, please.
Yep.
And I have the privilege of talking about creating a positive classroom climate. And so one goal that we also have is to create a climate where students feel safe, they feel cared for, they feel like they belong, they find themselves being represented and reflected, and they all feel like they're treated with respect and dignity. So this is important to consider across many different cultures and different backgrounds, as they all find value, affirmation in the classroom environment. And so the question that we pose here is, what are some strategies that you do to create a welcoming and positive classroom climate for all of your learners that you may have? And so I'll go first to get us started. I really like to, and some of the ideas from the last empathy could also cross over here, so feel free to repeat things if you think they apply here, but creating a positive classroom climate. And so I do this kinesiology bingo that I'm happy to share in the repository later as well, but it's just an icebreaker activity on the first day of class where they have essentially a bingo card that I created with different things, and they go around the classroom, they have time to go around and find somebody's name to put into that slot on the bingo card. So the idea that they find it, that they're gonna get to know their classmates a little bit better, kind of create a positive, easygoing environment in the class before we jump into some of the more challenging aspects of class, but that they really feel like they connect with different people in different areas. And so things on that bingo card could be things like find somebody who's a pre-PT major, find somebody who is a as into education and want to be an educator, find somebody who has multiple siblings, find somebody who did this sport or that sport. And so I tried to make all the options on the bingo card, if you will, all related to kinesiology or movement in some way. So that can be finding somebody who runs for fun, finding somebody who has completed a triathlon. And so the idea that they can make connections with several people in the classroom, and even myself, I even engage, and they can come up to me and say, hey, Dr. J, would you be willing to find something here, sign your name on my bingo card? And so the goal is to not just get bingos, to fill the card with different people. And so in theory, that is about 20 people in the class that they've already made some kind of connection with in the classroom. So I'm happy to share that with everybody in the repository with Priscilla, but I'm just going to describe that as kinesiology bingo in the card. So I see a couple people. Somebody said I prioritize taking the time to get to know them. Someone else said I share my pronouns when I introduce myself on the first day of class, and this allows students to share theirs when introducing themselves to the class. Someone else said they model positive reactions and positive behaviors, setting the tone as the instructor. Oh, this is a good one. Someone says they arrive early when possible to engage in conversation and greet the majority of students as they arrive to class. Another one says, I always ask them to share a really unique thing about them. You learn a lot about what they choose to share. Another one says, having students share their first motor skills of any kind that they learn as a child. That's a great one. Um, I think we have mood board checking at the start of class. That's definitely good. Whoever wrote that one, I'll be interested in hearing some discussion about that, because what do you do, such as what do you do if the general mood of the classroom, including yourself, is on the lower end for that particular day? How do you accommodate that, or how do you address that in the class that day? Someone said sport education teams that take care of each other and support each other. Oh, that's a great one. That's a new. I send students emails to check in when they miss something, miss submitting an assignment or miss class, just to check in. Want to know how many students you have in your class. Whoever said that. I start by talking about my own developmental trajectory so that they see me as a person. I support autonomy, great one, by including them in the decision-making mechanism. I ask students to write down something they would like me to know about them, and when they prefer to complete assignments, things they struggle with. After exams, I send emails tailored to how they did. That's very excellent. Any more that we can think of? Remember, we're going to share these with everybody, so the more the merrier, so that we all can be inclusive in our teaching strategies and creating a positive classroom environment for all of our students. Someone said previously in this activity, somebody said creating micro classroom climates. So I think that would be related to the sport ed teams, but if the class is super large format, creating micro classroom climates, so smaller groups. I tell a student when they make significant improvements on their assignments. These are awesome. I always go over the anonymous results of the mood board, usually memes, characters, etc. If the results indicate severely low energy, sometimes we will end early if needed. I've done that once or two. I use cats. It's like 9 cats on the visual, and on a scale of 1 through cat, what number are you? And they share lots of personal stories, so they see me as a person, and I am more human. That's important. We have about 2 more minutes. Let students at the beginning of the year co-create class rules and norms. That's a good one. Before, somebody talked about identity language, particularly for people that may have disabilities. So a person with autism versus autism person. So sharing with the classroom how to address people with different disabilities, or they may have different disabilities. Telling students that academics is just like learning a new sports skill. You need to practice, get feedback, fail, persist, and get better. Failure is a part of the journey. Thank you for sharing that one. I'll share one. Sometimes, if I don't think I lectured particularly well in the class before, I may start off the next class recapping, maybe clearing up something that I thought I didn't explain very well the time before. And that also shows them that I'm human and I'm not perfect and I make mistakes as well. Send tailored emails after exams. Example, you did well. Do you have study strategies you'd like to share with the class? You also made a B. Keep working hard. Very good. So to stay along schedule, and we'll have more time at the end of, after Ali presents, we'll move on to our third concept of inclusive teaching, and that'll be led by Ali. Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jericho. Before I share my Jamboard, I have the third concept, which is pedagogical practices. And I can't think of a better pedagogical framework to support access opportunity and a sense of belonging. I hope those words are okay, since I tried to avoid the other ones. Then universal design for learning. So I'll just quickly go over the 3 pillars of that, and then I'll move to our pedagogical Jamboard. And I also want to give a shout out to whomever posted the sticky about disability first versus person first terminology. That is a very difficult and contentious topic these days, and it's really important to ask. Some folks will say, I'm a deaf person supporting deaf pride, and others prefer to say, hey, I'm an individual with a visual impairment. So thank you to whoever did that. Okay. All right, can we see my screen? Okay, because when I share it, I've got other things popping up. So is it, Jericho, can we see it?
It's not the Jamboard.
No, I don't want to share the Jamboard yet.
Okay. Oh, yes. It's
Do we see universal design for learning? Okay, thank you. So universal design for learning really contains 3 pillars, providing multiple means of engagement, representation, and then action and expression, or more colloquially known as the why, the what, and the how. And most folks sort of situate universal design for learning with disability. And I tend to view it as, well, if universal is really universal, then it would help support the pedagogical and instructional practices to maximize the learning for all people, with and without disabilities, regardless. So what I like about it is that it really gets into the notion of optimizing choice. So that's your engagement. Representation, which is the way in which you display the information. And then action and expression, which has to do with the varying methods for response and navigation. And so our Jamboard is actually an interesting way. A Jamboard on a video, this isn't Zoom, a Teams type display is more universal than not. So if you think about what the Jamboard does, is it allows those who wouldn't necessarily be as apt to speak up or to jump out and raise their hand. It gives them a different way to express themselves. It's a different response mechanism. And then in our Teams situation, you could go to the chat. You could, well, I guess the presenters could, in this case, turn on their videos and say, hey, I've got something. You could use your emojis to raise your hand. All different ways in which you could express yourself, which really supports the more neurodiverse individuals that we work with in our classrooms. So, okay, let me pull up my Jamboard now. Sorry, trying to navigate different things here. Okay, so here's the pedagogical choice Jamboard. And then I will share mine. All right, so I gave the first example of a pedagogical choice, which would be universal design for learning as our framework, and then utilizing a Jamboard in your class. What are some other pedagogical choices that you use in your classrooms? So I use Jamboard. Oh, I love Kahoot. I've used Kahoot with undergrads all the way up through doctoral students. And if you're not familiar with it, it's really a hot way of using gamification to support motivation in class. So that's a good one. Mentimeter, yep, we talked about that one in one of our previous pillars, so thank you for that. Okay, different ways of presenting, right? So one of our presenters, I forget who it was now, I apologize, said that they sometimes present with video and sometimes provide the audio. That would be a way, so very good. I love the slanted rope. It's actually the first time I ever saw that was I was Jackie's doctoral student at the Ohio State University, and she definitely used that in her early elementary methods courses, and that was the first time I saw it, and I thought it was genius. And it's actually a very universal way, a differentiated way to teach skills like catching. It's a good one for that. Okay. 2 options for the final project. Yep, helping support that autonomy, or sometimes as instructors, we like to create an illusion of autonomy, right? Like you think you have a choice. We're going to do one or the other, right? Yeah, very good. Oh, Quizlet. Yep, they can all make flashcards. Very good. Providing the same information in different forms to encourage different learning styles. Yep, it's a good one. Any other ones? I'm just curious if anyone, not that I can see you on video, but maybe by use of thumbs up or so, does anyone do anything like this in their classroom when they're lecturing? Do they provide a way for students to communicate through this chat type of frame? I saw a couple hands jump up. So as I encounter more and more students who articulate to me that they struggle with anxiety, I do find that allowing the chat is a nice way to help support them. Pairing students together who have different learning styles and learning together, that's good. Okay, I missed any. All right. What other pedagogical strategies? Having students create case studies in groups and share with other students to apply a motor behavior concept. Team-based learning, very good. So having students create and then think, pair, share, very good. It made me think of Jigsaw, where, if you're not familiar with Jigsaw, you start and you put students into groups. So say 5 groups of 3, or in Nancy's case, 5 groups of 10, or in many of you others' cases, maybe 5 groups of 100. I don't know, that's a joke. But have them start off in their groups and then break off into separate theme groups as the second groups go and work together, say on their concept, they come back and then report to their original group what they learned. So it's a different complex way of think, pair, share. I don't know who posted AHA slides. That's a new one to me. If you wouldn't mind typing more, that would be great. Good, good. Anyone else familiar with AHA slides that could expand? Okay. Okay, I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Paul, how am I doing here?
I think we're okay. We have, was it 20 minutes left?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, we're fine.
Okay. Padlet, yep, good one. So if you ever have students with hearing impairments or who consider themselves deaf, this is a good way to support it. And then having the audio to go with it for students with visual impairments would certainly get at that multiple means of representation. Rotating posters, where groups start at a poster and answer questions, and they move to the next and add to the previous group's answers. Yes, that's a great strategy. We're hoping to do that with this presentation, where we would move us around the different topics and groups, but given the technological constraints, we weren't able to do that. So, but I love that idea, helping to see and getting that to sort of spark and then build. It's a wonderful strategy. Okay. I'm seeing some more in the chat. I use Slido on Google Slides. It's an app extension. You can make it anonymous to ask answer questions. That's a new one. Thank you, Alex. And she was responding to Sarah Walls. I'd love to learn how to use an anonymous way to ask and answer questions. Nice. Very good. Have technology app to create a word cloud to get at prior knowledge for a motor behavior concept. Yes, that's good. So in order to actually universally design something, you have to understand what the needs are of your students. And then to do that, you really need to assess. So it's really important that that first step, and I've heard a few of you say it in the previous concept sessions here, that they like to get a pulse of where their students are at, what their previous experiences are, what their current knowledge base is, and that is actually that critical first step towards universally designing activities. So thank you for that point. Yep. I will try to add that for you, Alex. It's in the chat. Someone asked, Priscilla asked if you could add Slido. So do that. And then you'll have to show me that. It's a new one to me. I used to find myself at the forefront of technology, and now that I'm more and more seasoned, I find that my students or former students have now surpassed me with technology. So that's an interesting thing. Okay, aha, slides, mutual communications, got it. Thank you to whomever added that. Okay. Any other thoughts about pedagogical choices? I like some of the comments. So these different aspects of pedagogical strategies that support a sense of belonging, that support access and opportunity, are not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? So a really solid pedagogical strategy would be to check in periodically on your students, invite them to office hours. Often they won't come unless prodded. Maybe doing some sort of survey that could be anonymous just to get a pulse of the class as a whole. Those are good pedagogical choices to get an understanding as you move along. I once had a chair say to me that you actually really never understand what's going on in a student's life, and it's important to do that so that maybe you get a gauge at what they're bringing to your classroom. Sometimes we tend to jump to why were they late or why didn't they do this assignment, and we get angry. So it is important to check in along the way, and sending out some of those surveys, if it's a large class, would be a good way to do that. Okay, did I miss any? I think I got them all. Right, I think I'm gonna kick back to Jericho.
Absolutely, thank you, Ali. Can we can we share at the same time? Because I can pull up the.
Which one do you want, Jericho? I'll pull it up.
The last slide, the last two slides in our PowerPoint.
Oh, Paul, can you do that?
And then
okay. Let's see.
And Ali, we can start with the empathy. After we get to the last slide. Sorry, I only have one screen from home.
And then let's see, view. How's that work?
Looks good. Thank
Okay.
you, Paul. So thank you everybody for hanging in there and being super engaged and sharing your ideas. So now we want to conclude our engagement session with thinking about, okay, we have these ideas on each of these Jamboards. We would like your help to think about when these strategies would occur in the semester. And so some may be throughout the semester as well. And so here, we're going to go back to each of our Jamboards, and I'm going to try to organize the sticky notes where they fall within the semester. So anecdotally, why we thought this was important is because we know that we may do certain things like empathy really well in the beginning of the semester, but it's important to have kind of ideas to continue to sustain inclusive teaching across the semester. So think about this. This line is a timeline from the beginning of the semester into the final exam, and we're going to revisit those Jamboards and share them on the screen. And I would like your, I guess, verbal help, and or you can actually move your own sticky notes as well. But we're going to try to organize each of the stickies on each of the three Jamboards, time permitting, so that we can also share ideas with when these would occur in the semester. Allie, let's start with our empathy Jamboard. And so we have tons and tons and tons and tons to choose from. Some, if they are ambiguous, maybe we can just leave them in the middle top. Asking what type of learner they are. I'm not sure who said this, but maybe I'm sure in the beginning. Extra office hours before the exam week. I think that would fluctuate. That would happen several times. This is a good one. Thank you for whoever this is. Mid-quarter surveys. Obviously, that would go somewhere in the middle of the semester. Daily is a good one. I think that wouldn't fall anywhere on the timeline because you were very specific about doing this pretty often. So feel free to grab your sticky note, but I want to go through each of these. Ask if they have a job. I think that would be important to know earlier on in the semester, compared to later on. Ask, not just if they work, but where they study and do homework at. I think that also goes in the beginning. Ask students at the beginning of the semester what they want to learn in the course. The sport ed groups is a good one. I think that will happen earlier in the semester. I'm guessing whoever said this, whoever made this, if you're not afraid to chat, if you have that ability, do they stay with the same sport ed groups for the entire semester, or would those change? Because that would vary. That would depend. That answer would depend on where the sticky would go.
Jericho, this is Jackie. I shared that one. I keep them in the same groups.
Okay, so
So
awesome.
it's sort of Daryl Siedentop's notion of physical education sport ed. And
Yes.
you might take on different roles across the semester, but
Mhm.
the idea is to build sort of a team, caring environment, making sure if someone falls behind, you get them back, get them back on board. So it's that real sort of shared responsibility.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. So that will go early on. They stay there. Have students where they tell where they come from earlier in the semester. Ask students what they want to be will be early in the semester. And so we can see here for empathy, just anecdotally, seems like many of us do really well in the beginning of the semester at establishing that empathy. And so our challenge for each of us seems to be how can we maintain that connection and that empathy in the middle of the semester, and especially towards the end of the semester, as we know that things change, including engagement changes across the semester. Have students assist with deadlines. That'll be earlier on. This is a general one. Listen with respect. Candy in my office. Might even remember their names earlier on. So you can see here again, most of our things that we do. And so I guess the question going forward is what can we do on the back end of the semester to evoke empathy or to still maintain that connection with our students. And the student is in time asking they're okay. So that's our empathy Jamboard. So it seems like we could all do better or do more on the backside. The next Jamboard that we discussed was positive classroom climate. And so, Allie, you mind sharing that one as well? Feel free again if you are one of the individuals who placed a sticky board, go ahead and you can place that in the first half, the middle, or the end. I know I mentioned bingo, that's at the beginning of the semester. Prioritize taking time to get to know them. I'm guessing somewhere towards the beginning. Arrive early. I think you can do that pretty much any time of the semester. As instructors or professors, we're probably most likely to be really good at that in the beginning of the semester ourselves. Tell students that academics is just like learning a new skill. Ask students to write down something they would like to learn, would like me to know about them in the beginning. Personal stories, you can share those throughout. Emails, they can happen throughout after exams, so that happens throughout. Co-creating the rules and norms, that happens at the beginning. Decision making can kind of happen throughout. Share the first skills. Mood board, I think that's a good one to use multiple times throughout. Talking about my own trajectory, that's in the beginning. Jackie, when I hear the word trajectory, I think about you. So I'm thinking that was you.
Me too.
Okay. Sending emails after exams, I think that can happen throughout. That's a great one. I send emails to students checking when they miss assignment. That can also happen throughout. So we seem a little better at maintaining a positive, very good at creating a positive environment, and pretty good at maintaining a positive environment through the middle of the semester. And then I guess, really, how do we continue to have a positive classroom climate towards the end of the semester when maybe like grades are starting to come through more and maybe students are a little bit less happy and a little bit less less happy than they were with you at the beginning of the semester. So how can we continue to maintain a positive classroom environment to make sure that it's inclusive? And then our final Jamboard, let's wrap up today, a great 2 days rather, is our pedagogical choices Jamboard. Luckily, it seems like these are mostly different ways or different medias that we can use. And so luckily they can go pretty much anywhere. So I'll put the different platforms or media outlets that everybody shared on the top row, because I think that they could be used and maybe to increase engagement or to keep engagement sustained throughout the semester. Maybe that could be something that we try to use different methods throughout. I think that in theory, it sounds good versus just getting really good at one and continue to use one. So thanks for sharing those. Think, Pair, Share can be used at any time. The final project looks like we got something towards the end. Creating a word cloud to get prior knowledge and motive, that goes in the beginning. Parent students, probably at the beginning. I'm not sure about that slanted rope of Jackie's, where that will go. Quizlet is also another.
So slanted rope can really be used in all activities. If you've got some kind of challenge activity that you give them different levels of challenge. So it could be over the whole semester.
Thank you. Team-based learning. I guess that can go across the semester. Slanted ropes. Having students create case studies in groups and share with others. That's a great one. Scavenger hunt. Each person is given a piece of relevant knowledge. Once you have found your knowledge group, I think maybe somewhere right here. Providing the same information in different forms and learning styles that happens throughout the semester as well. So again, pretty good at establishing choice in the beginning, and then I think the area for improvement will probably be towards the end of the semester. So thank you all again for your Jamboards. And so for the conclusion, we would obviously like to thank the committee for hosting this inaugural conference. Like, this was amazing to just sit back and share resources. I'm looking forward to the repository and posting these different ways that we can be inclusive in our teaching. I just would leave with one final thought on the sticky notes that we all posted. Is most of them seem to be very general, and so we also should be mindful about how we view diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think we didn't see a lot, like cultural values and students seeing themselves in the classroom. I think those are other areas that seem to be lacking, just based on the quick few minutes that we have for each Jamboard. I think those are also things to think about, like how do students see themselves being represented in the classroom, whether they're able-bodied or right? Are we being ableist, and so on and so forth, particularly for an area like motor development and movement. And so I think that's also probably an area that we can improve. I will say, though, if you ever taken the time to look across the textbooks, many of the writers are in here. We've done great at starting to add more colorful pictures that represent people of different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds. I think as a person of color, I definitely appreciate that, and it feels good personally to see somebody that may look like you as well. And so definitely want to commend those, the progress that we have made as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion in the field of motor development as a whole as well. And so without further ado, I think I will hand it back over to the moderators for this engagement session.
Great, thank you. That was a great session. We have time for a couple questions, if anyone has them.
Great. And as people are thinking about their questions, I just wanted to throw out there. So first of all, thank you very much. I think that's given us a lot of different ideas. So certainly a lot of different ways to try to engage students and check in throughout the semester. I think it's really easy to focus on that in the beginning, and then you kind of get in this steamroller and forget about just checking in. And that's, as you mentioned, that's probably the most important time because they're getting more stressed and other struggles. But I was wondering, so there's a lot of focus on pedagogical choice. And I was just wondering, how do you manage some of the challenge that comes with that? Sometimes I find when you give students a lot of choice that they become easily overwhelmed with that and perhaps even frustrated. So we always think choice is the answer, but you know, what are some tips that you might have for managing how that can actually be really difficult for students? Sometimes they're just like, just tell me what's the word count, tell me what the topic is, tell me how many citations, and I'll make it happen. But when you're like, there's no word count, there's no topic, you know, letting things really wide, sometimes that is really hard for them. So curious on your tips.
Yeah, I can jump in on that, unless anyone else wants to. Sometimes, and I alluded to this earlier, I refer to it as a challenge by choice, or even an illusion of autonomy, where sometimes you constrain the choice, where they think, okay, I have all these choices, but realistically it's, you know, can you do A, B, or C? Mm-hmm. If you find that you've got this wonderfully differentiated class where you have some here that, yeah, I need 10 pages, 3,000 words, you know, 11 font, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, perhaps it's a mastery-oriented approach to the choice where you can choose within these. And then once you've hit this benchmark, now you can choose from this set. And once you've hit that benchmark, you can choose within the next set. So that I found that to be effective for me.
I would piggyback. I struggle with offering a lot of choices. I know I was the one that commented the 2 final project options, and that's because of a great mentor, Dr. Goodway. She talked about earlier rubrics. I found that the more choices that I offer, sometimes there's a lot of work on my end to have very clear guidelines and rubrics for all of those assignments. And so that's probably my bigger challenge with having too many choices. That's many more rubrics and many more ways that you have to assess something similarly across different students is my biggest challenge. So I try to be like Ali, like give them an illusion of choice, but maybe like 3 at the most, because it starts to get kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. Rubrics, I find that we give them a paper, and if we can scaffold some self-regulation, and so you say, okay, you do your rough draft of your paper, and then here's your rubric, and let's assess yourself on the rubric and see if you met the points. And so then they're not worried about choosing how much stuff. There's kind of some type of self-regulation so they can check themselves to help them make some of those decisions.
So sorry. I have a quick question. You know, we talk a lot about empathy, and what I found is during the pandemic, we were asked to be more empathetic with students. But I found that works to a point, and then it seems to be leading to faculty burnout. So how do you balance the needs of your students versus your own self-care needs?
I would say boundaries is the key thing to set up. Like there's you have to set the points where you don't cross and the students don't cross. And if you can do that for yourself, that's a one guideline.
Yeah. I would agree with that too, Paul, that it's really easy to get bogged down and sucked into what's happening. But at the end of the day, you know, your health matters too. So yeah, I would say have enough space to listen and then make sure to remind that student if need be that, you know, office hours are here, or, you know, I'm happy to engage during these times, that sort of thing. Easier to say though than do.
That's also interesting for me this semester. I'm in my third year, for everybody that doesn't know me, is that they understand, maybe not understand what exactly office hours are for. So now my students will miss a class and say, hey, can I come to office hours for you to reteach what I missed, which isn't maybe what office hours were initially created for. And so I'm struggling because like you made the adult choice not to come to class. And so now does it fall back on me to reteach something that you otherwise would have been present for? And so I had that several times this semester. But I also wanted to talk about, I'm at a minority serving institution. I have a lot of students that just work. So this idea of empathy, like majority of my students have jobs. And I think that's why I started to ask them, do they have jobs? Because I'm learning that they really do have jobs, and they may not be the best at time management, but there is got to be a fine line between being a pushover and being empathetic. And I'm not sure I quite am seasoned enough to know that I'm not a hard body like some other people, but I'm not completely a pushover. So I'm trying to learn the balance of being empathetic, particularly to serve my student body that at UNT. I don't know if any of you, I guess the question is, do any of your students all have jobs, or is that just something that's really popular down here in Texas?
Most of our students do, maybe not necessarily in the first year, but after that, a lot of our students work. So Carrie Staples mentioned, I call them student hours, time that I have dedicated to help them succeed. I think I like that that terminology a little bit better. I think it really captures what it is. A lot of students are kind of confused about what office hours really means. It's a bit archaic, I think, from what it used to be. So the fact that you're getting students coming in and asking you to go over things, I think that's already a win, because I find it's not very often that students come in during office hours. Right.
Oh, no, they don't say, can I go over something? They say, hey, I missed class. Was there anything important that I missed? And if so.
Right.
I had a student that came to a review session and said, I missed class 2 weeks ago. Can you just go over everything that you went over on that class? That's not what a review session is for. So, all right. Well, thank you to our panel on engagement. I think that really got a lot of us thinking. So appreciate all of your tips, and for everyone that was participating as well. And I will hand over to Priscilla, who has some final words.
Yes, I guess with that, I would like to officially wrap up our first IMDRC Teaching Modal Development Conference, and I think it was great. All the feedback is very welcome. I would definitely like to continue this in the future. As a reminder, please join the IMDRC, become a member. There are several benefits to becoming a member. And don't forget that everything that we talked about here needs to go in the repository as easy resources for us. So even if you presented it, please send it to us so we can create a great a great place for us to go to when we need ideas, when we're teaching new classes, when we need to engage more. Those are all great resources. So please send it so we can create this repository and make it really useful for our field. Thank you all.
And please join me in thanking Priscilla, who's just put hours and hours and hours into developing this conference. She's been amazing. Thank you, Priscilla. You've been a phenomenal leader, and this has just been a wonderful experience.